Welcome, Spartans, to Halo TV Plus, part of Evolved, your home for Halo. I'm your host, Oran, and on Halo TV Plus, my guests and I recap Halo's original TV show, Halo the Series, and discuss its content and unique canon within its silver timeline. Joining me again to discuss Episode 6, Solace, is David Arnold. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Oran. Hey, everybody.
Hey. So as you know, Halo TV Plus produces a commentary episode and an analysis episode to accompany the Halo the Series episode of the week. This is the analysis episode. In a moment, David and I will highlight key scenes from Solace and discuss the effectiveness on screen while adding core canon knowledge for context. Earlier in the week, we released a commentary episode for Solace where we discussed the whole episode while watching it. If you missed it, I recommend listening to that episode first before listening to our analysis, but it's up to you. Let me do some housekeeping before we dive in. If you're new to the show, welcome. Halo TV Plus is part of Evolved that hosts a variety of other Halo shows, such as Podcast Evolved, Mission Debrief, Builds with Blocks, Halo Book Club, and Halo Headlines. Evolved also partners with the podcast HCS Pro Talk, where Josh and Will discuss the latest information within the competitive Halo scene, with an emphasis on the community every week. You can learn more about each show on our website, evolvedhalo.com. As Halo TV Plus is a new show, I ask that you rate it and leave a review. I greatly appreciate all the feedback and suggestions from you, the listeners, to improve the quality of this show. I would also like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons for their continued support. Your contributions allow us to continue making new content each and every week. Thank you guys so much. If you're not subscribed, our patrons receive a variety of exclusive rewards, such as early episodes, unique swag, access to our podcast soundtrack, and more. You can head over to patreon.com/HaloEvolved to learn more. Now to give our synopsis and episode details again for Solace. Survivors of the battle with the Covenant return to Reach. John confronts Dr. Halsey and her lies. A new prisoner seems to know John better than he knows himself, and the mysterious artifact shows John something startling. The director is Jonathan Leisman. The runtime is 48 minutes and 36 seconds, and it originally aired on April 28th, 2022. All right, so, David, this episode is heavily focused on John. I mean, you could argue that a lot of the episodes are. He's the main character, of course, but John, up to this point, definitely has been going on a journey, almost a transformation. He's learning about his past. He's discovering new things about himself, and I kind of think it ultimately builds to this episode. Would you say?
Oh, for sure. I love this journey. I mean, let's say overall, I'm not in love with the show. I like it a lot, but there's elements within it that I do love, and the main one is their portrayal of John, this character, this arc. I love it. Paolo is awesome, or it's Paolo Scriber, isn't it? Yeah, that's how you say his name. I think he's incredible. I just love John's arc here. He is where I want John to be in the main canon. I want to see emotions. I thought John should be here by now, by Halo Infinite. Like, could you imagine this John playing through Halo Infinite? Like, what about a different game that would be? So I love it. I think he's fantastic, and I love where the story went with him. The drama. Oh my god, the drama in this episode, Oran. It's tasty. I love it.
I mean, I think, like, I was a big fan of, like, episode 1 and, like, where we just immediately jump into the humanity. Like, I've heard some feedback where people would have been like, oh, it would have been nice if, like, this story was season 2 and season 1 we get a little bit more of, like, what we know Chief is with, like, the, you know, being a machine and all that. And I'm like, no, I kind of liked how we just jumped off from the deep end, right? And over the last couple of episodes, it really has been building to, like, this moment. Now, not to say that his journey's complete, like, that, you know, we still have 3 more episodes, and who knows what happens in, like, future seasons and such, but, like, to trust McKee and to go to the artifact and, like, succumb to it, which eventually projects himself onto the ring, I just, like, not only is it the ring, you know, like, that moment in and of itself was, like, big, but, like, I just feel like we finally have made progress. Whereas the last couple of episodes, there has been a little bit of some stagnation, and it's just kind of like more of the same, I would say. But like we see Chief kind of like really taking charge of trying to figure out what is going on and battling with the artifact of him, like seemingly kind of like sucking the life out of him almost. So to just build up to this episode. To me, like I just found this episode just be super rewarding. I've said it before. I think it's my favorite episode so far, and I'm just really excited to where they go next.
Definitely.
One great moment that happened in here, which we touched on in the commentary, was John kind of testing the limits of Cortana.
Oh, what a scene!
We talked kind of just throughout it, but I just wanted to touch on again. I want to see more of like that chief to like take command of like a situation like that, and just in other settings, because we've seen it a little bit in some of the action sequences, and he's kind of been, more on the I'm trying to learn what's going on, so there's not much action I can kind of take. But like in this scene, like he shows you the intelligence of the Spartan, and I think you kind of touched on that as well, of like how kind of calculated that he can be, and that he does everything very deliberately. And so I want to see kind of where that takes him going forward, to kind of see just more of that now that he kind of learns some more with like the ring and his connection with McKee. Like how do you think, or like with the other Spartans, for an example, like where do you see John kind of like taking charge, kind of like going forward now that we've established the ring, and we are getting this dynamic between him and Kai, and him and McKee, and then he's even getting closer to Miranda now that Miranda has ownership of the Spartan program.
His relationships are changing a lot over the course of the show, and I love it. And honestly, I think we're pushing towards AWOL John soon. I know they touched on it in the first episode, which was very strange, because like they're very quick into like showing John splitting from the UNSC, but he kind of came back to them when he realized, okay, I need you, this is a bigger thing, bigger situation. But I think where they touched on his relationships of like who knows what, I think when the reveal comes to him that Keyes knows, I think I get the impression from the last 2 episodes anyway that that's a very important relationship for him. That he has more of a relationship with Captain Keyes than he does with Halsey anyway. Well, no, not with Halsey, because obviously that relationship is now broken. That's obviously a very sore point for him, as we see with this amazing scene and him pretty much letting her almost die. I love how the counter goes past 0 and the shit's pumping in the room before he opens the door. I thought like it'd be like, one of those movie things where it's like, 2 seconds or 1 second. He's like, no, fucking let the shit pump in and then I'll get her. So I thought that was great. That was fantastic. And I think there's a moment here where I think it might break him from the UNSC. I think there's more politics involved. I want to see John being maybe a little bit more manipulated. And I think with the introduction of McKee and them having a bit of a relationship, and like I joked in the show of like, almost kissing, they're going to kiss. There's a vibe there between these two characters that I think is fantastic.
I mean, they definitely feel the connection with themselves in that moment, because like this is the first time that John has seen the ring and kind of discovering what this is, but it's McKee's first time being there too. Like she's just as much as in awe as he is, and the two of them share this connection that they both don't fully understand, even less so for Chief. Yeah, there is that kind of strange sort of tension that we kind of got just kind of, I think, from like movie trope, where they're like, oh, are they about to like kiss? Which really wouldn't make sense. But they definitely share this connection that will be very interesting to see how it develops, because on one hand, you could have, Chief wanting to use her to kind of get closer to his past, even though she doesn't know anything directly, but because this indirect sort of connection, she could be like a key in that sense.
Yeah, he's going to want to know, like, the thing that makes him different. Not necessarily his past, but let's say what he is genetically. Like, they touch on it here. So she seems to understand more being a blessed one than, obviously, humanities don't know. So I think he looks at her that way of, like, you know more than I do about this thing that we share, and I need to know.
And then on her side of things, it's like, okay, you're also a blessed one, so that means you must share some of the knowledge and, like, the goals that, like, I believe. And I think she's going to really try to pull him, not necessarily into the Covenant. Like, maybe it could be a thing where, like, the two, like, she wants to be just with John and kind of do, I don't know, maybe they learn more of, like, what the Forerunners are, and she wants to maybe pursue that. So then, now we have John being pulled in these 2 or 3 different directions.
Yeah, because like she's the same, and I feel like he has interesting motivations to split and to stay. She has interesting motivations to split and stay as well, because she's obviously hiding stuff from the Covenant as well, as we know from her storybooks and stuff like that. And there's elements of her own humanity that she's keeping, and I like that maybe she'll split from the Covenant. Maybe John will split from the UNSC, and I think that may be a season 2, season 3 storyline. I could see these two characters having to split and go ahead, and then I think that's a wonderful time to bring in other Spartans to hunt John. I think I'd love to see that in the show. I've seen that element, and maybe that's where a different branch comes up, because we see like in the first couple of episodes of the show of like the committee and stuff being worried of like the Spartans were untouchable and infallible, and now we're seeing that's not true. They're seeing their trust a little bit go down in terms of John and stuff like that, which is very interesting. So I wonder if there's elements there of a different section within Oni coming out, or not, like we said, we don't think there's Oni yet, but a different section coming out here of like, okay, where's our answers to the Spartans? Like if a Spartan goes rogue, what do we do? I like the idea of maybe they set up something else and then that happens further down the line. I mean, there's just so much potential that I can see happening in the first couple of shows, and it all leads off the relationships between these people, and I think they do it really well. I think that's like one of the best things I think this timeline, the Silver Timeline, has going for it, is like the relationship between these people is believable and really interesting.
And like to even touch on what Kiki Wolfkill's even said in interviews is that like there's so much from the canon to pull. It's like, well, what stories do we pull to tweak and kind of take inspiration from? And when you have all these great characters that are just acted and portrayed just so well, yeah, it's like where do you want to take them? And you can pull them in all these different sort of ways. And so to kind of see it unfold in this seemingly organic way, working towards something, yeah, I just want to see more of that. So yeah, like you said, just the acting in these characters and the relationships are really what's keeping this show together. But not like it's falling apart, so to speak, but it's just like
it's not an action-packed show.
Yeah, they've really said that this is a character-driven show, and like they've really done that. But it's still, for the most part, I mean, I have my own gripes here and there with choices and things. In general, like, yeah, I'm kind of rooting for almost everybody to like do what they want to do, and that's what you want, because some characters, they conflict with others. So if you're rooting for both of them to achieve what they want to achieve, but they're in opposition, that's when you have an exciting show. So and you mentioned Keyes, like I feel like we haven't really seen Keyes do what core canon Keyes can do.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like he belongs just yet. He's not a big character. I'm a little bit disappointed with him in terms of he's not Jacob Keyes. This is a totally different character. I don't get the impression he's cut from the same cloth a little bit. And I'm also at the moment, like, I don't believe him and Natasha and McElhone have like any chemistry whatsoever. I just find it hard to believe that they had a child. Do you know what I mean? I don't believe it in the context of the show. I believe his daughter Miranda and Jacob, their relationship is very interesting, and obviously and that's believable, but I just don't believe him and Natasha McElhone at the moment.
Yeah, no, I definitely can understand that point of view. Yeah, I kind of just accepted it, but you're right. Like there isn't even some type of underlying chemistry that like shows that they had a past. Like Halsey's still just like 100% on in the now, preparing for the future, trying to learn as much as she can. And Keyes kind of just wants to protect Miranda, is kind of a lot of what his screen time stuff is, and like protect himself. But what I was going to say about Keyes, like what we potentially could get that we got just a taste of in this episode and in the last episode was like his direct relationship with John, because John really trusts Keyes, and we had that great moment in episode 5, and we got a little bit of it in this episode, and I'm curious to see how that might develop, because I can see maybe Chief relying a little bit on Keyes to, I don't know, further whatever aim that we're kind of getting later in the show. And depending upon how Keyes reacts to that could be very interesting. He could stay true to what he's been kind of doing in this show and kind of staying the military man and reporting what he sees, or maybe he sees something that Chief sees and wants to kind of get back at the UNSC or something, or he sees the greater good somewhere out there, and then Keyes then can kind of help Chief achieve whatever he's trying to do. So I think there's a relationship there that could develop into something more that I think we're just now finally seeing, that I wish we just got earlier in the show, but we just haven't really gotten that from Keyes yet. Let's see. We have the great, to kind of piggyback off Catherine Halsey, just in general, we had that great interrogation scene where it was kind of like a more judicial sequence that it kind of started with, questioning the legalities of the Spartan program. And
yeah, a bit of politics going on here, a bit of maneuvering with the committee and stuff. You can see Parangosky kind of like setting up Halsey a bit. But there's good dialogue between her and Keys here, kind of explaining what they're on with. And he's like, she's too smart for this. And she's like, I'm relying on that. Which I got the impression of that she was setting up Halsey to be like the scapegoat, but with full belief that Halsey would get out of it. And therefore she could just like get away with it, whatever. And I like that. That's the impression I got from this. And then, like you said in the commentary, a little bit disappointing that it got cut short. I kind of wanted to see a little bit more where it would go. But it was a good scene before it became interrupted, and it became a great scene.
Yeah, then I mean the greatness still continues, so to speak, with Chief coming in there and just being like, I need answers. I've been trying to get them for 3 episodes now, and now you're going to tell me, like, and that's just it. And we get basically the explanation of the birth of the program that we've been hinted at for the last couple of episodes. And of course, most Halo fans that are familiar with the Fall of Reach novel do know and kind of learn about. So I'm happy that we finally got that as an audience member.
I'm glad she told him, like, straight away told him, and there was no lies there. I was impressed with that.
And it's not just like a flashback that was just like explaining it all. Like even though you do, as a visual medium, it is always better to show and not tell. But like sometimes the way things are told are just as powerful. And I agree that like her, looking up to John, because John doesn't really sit down, or he gets up halfway through it. And so she's in this very like defensive point of view, and he's towering over her, and she's just like telling it to him, like, this is what we did. This is my belief. This is why we did it. And then he's like, oh, well, you're selfish and you're this, you're that. And he's just like, well, but yes, but I kind of don't see it that way because of X, Y, and Z. And so like that, they just really play off each other just so well. And it just, I don't know, it's very rewarding. Like once I finally saw that, like for me, I just was like, wow, that was a great way to be told that information that, yes, I've, you and I and, other deep lore fans are very familiar with, but to kind of see it unfold in this way, I felt like was just as powerful. And it was great to way for like John to experience that, because I was talking with another one of the guests, and like, I don't really think that the Spartans know what took place.
Oh no, they definitely imply that like they wiped memories here.
Well, I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. And like core canon, like our Master Chief and Halo Infinite, like they may have a little bit of an idea of kind of like what went on, but they kind of just brush it off or don't really think too much of.
They all remember. They know that they were stolen.
Really? I didn't think that they were, at least not specifically.
Like, so some of them were young. Like some of them weren't 6. Like some of them were a little bit younger. I remember that being like, there's a slight age variation between 2 of them. So like some of them might not actually remember, but like most of them know that they were taken. That's where Halsey came out and she said, there was that scene in Reach where she was talking to Mendez going like, I'm not going to lie to these children. I'm going to tell them. So she gets up and delivers her speech, which is like, these 6-year-olds aren't going to understand this, but they're actually like intelligent humans. You know what I mean? That's why they were selected for like the whole genetics and stuff. So like she explained to them exactly what happened. I took you. Do you know what I mean? You were taken for this. You have great purpose. You're going to be this. I'm going to make you into Spartans, make you into these incredible heroes. And that was like her selling it to them. So like they definitely knew there was no like memory wipe, which they clearly did here and are covering up. Which I think is fine, and I like that difference because it gives us the emotional reveal. Then we have the Spartans, like you have Kai and John actually caring that they were taken. Do you know what I mean? And the flash cloning and how that was explained. That was all marvelous.
Well, another thing about flash cloning and all that, like Cortana seems to be like the only smart AI in this show.
That's interesting. I haven't even thought of that actually. Yeah.
To flash clone a brain and to make it into a smart AI is and like to use a real brain when someone dies, that's kind of commonplace in the core canon. But like this, we see is like kind of the inception of it. So like the whole idea and ethics surrounding like cloning and biological sort of like manipulation and all that kind of stuff is all new to the Silver timeline here. So then that's why the politics of it, it makes it interesting because it's all new and we're trying to figure it all out. Instead of it already being established and we have those rules set in place, where we're seeing it unfold on screen, and that kind of just adds that extra drama. We kind of touched on McKee. I guess the ending here, we can kind of move on to the impactfulness of the ending and what we think it kind of means, because it innately just kind of creates just more questions within the context of the show. So we have John succumbing to the artifact after he usually kind of releases.
Is that McKee gave him that key piece of information of what to do, and then he does it.
But I guess it's curious is that, like, if this is McKee's first time seeing the ring, then I wonder what she sees when she succumbed to the artifact. Because the prophets wanted her to just hold on to it as long as she needed to. So she kind of had to figure that out on herself. She didn't really have a choice like John had over the last few episodes. So I'm curious to see and learn, like, what she saw. If this is the first time she's seeing or maybe this isn't the first time she's seeing in the ring. Maybe she has been here before.
I get the impression that it was her first time on the ring, but they seem to know that they're looking for a ring. Do you know what I mean? She seems to know what the Keystones do and their purpose, which is kind of interesting. And that, like, she theoretically, no, I guess she had no time with the larger artifact actually, because as soon as they stole it, they dropped her down. So there was no element. We didn't get anything to see of what she could do with the large one. And then on top of that, I'm kind of thinking out loud now that John sees his past, but not just his past, a specific moment within it, which is where he saw the first keystone. So I wonder, is the smaller part of the keystone telling him, here's the big one that you saw earlier, go there and bring me there? I'm getting the impression that it's only that specific memory set that it unlocks for him for that purpose.
Yeah, because he has a history with the larger stone.
But I wonder now, is this John's acceptance of the device, and like she says, they work for me. I wonder, is this now, he is now able to control Forerunner tech, actually do something with it other than just flash memories and freak out.
Like in the first episode when he grabs the artifact and it like kills the whole power to the base.
It was reacting to what he needed.
It'll be interesting to see at what point will he now have a conscious decision to do what he wants the artifact to do, or to do a different type of device to do, whether it's a light bridge or whatever, or an activation index, for an example. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what type of kind of mental abilities he's able to unlock now that he's more or less one with the artifact, if you will. But like, so where do you think, now that we're getting towards the end of this season, like, where do you think it goes from here? Like, how we have 3 episodes left. They see the ring. Like, I honestly don't really know.
I could believe, like, there's a lot of stumbling, and this is kind of where the show is, right? Obviously, Forerunner tech is not prevalent in human space. This is clearly the first piece of Forerunner tech the humans have ever seen, right? So it's not like Halsey's been working on it, or like, you know, we had in Reaches where I think they first found, Sarensgrad kind of found the first thing, the whole latchkey discovery kind of stuff, and that obviously was their first, more or less, kind of foray into Forerunners, like a non-covenant race of sentient beings and stuff with advanced technology. So I'm intriguing to see, like, how fast the show is going to go. I'm hoping are we getting to the ring physically in this season? Maybe not. I think it's possible that, like, maybe the end of the season is bringing the 2 pieces of the Keystones together, and then that's the case of whatever that reveals might be the end of show. That's possible, I think. I almost hope it is. I almost don't want to get to the Halo in season 1, because it seems a little bit too fast. And then, obviously, things would escalate very quickly.
That would actually time out, I think, very well with the fact that they greenlit season 2 ahead of season 1's launch. Like, I kind of like that idea where season 1 would end with the 2 Keystones coming together, whether it's the UNSC doing it or the Covenant doing it, and it basically showing the destination or the location of the ring. And then that's basically where the cliffhanger is, and it's like, okay, now everybody is going to the ring. And like that's what the second season is now up. It's basically the race to the ring and the fight over the ring, you know, because the UNSC still think it might be a weapon that they can use. They still don't know why the Forerunners built it and what it truly does. They're just going off of an assumption.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, in this timeline, is the flood a thing? Like, do we get there and the reveal of is the ring what it was in our timeline? Maybe not. Maybe the ring isn't what everyone thinks it is. Like us outside of the show think it is. I mean, and that's really interesting to me. The fact that Forerunner technology could be different. I mean, I don't even think we have the word Forerunner hasn't even been said in the show. So like, who really knows who built it or what it's for?
I think Miranda or Halsey, when they were doing their own research of the artifact, they made, I think it was Miranda actually, they made some sort of note that there is some sort of like thing or sentience that is like communicating with John.
A few, both of them have said that, yeah.
Yeah, so like they do recognize that, and I think it will eventually get there. I don't know. I can see this being like a pretty cool space opera, and they just go. I really hope they lean into it because like the Forerunners and the Flood, like there's so much of like Halo lore that's buried into all of that, and I think you could implement that into the show. I mean, yes, it'll take time. I mean, like the whole Forerunner trilogy is just a massive amount of like super complex like ideologies and like ways, like it's a hard series or hard trilogy to read for some fans because it's like so hardcore space sci-fi as opposed to the more militaristic sci-fi of the other novels. So I do think there could be definitely a different way of introducing the Forerunners, and you have to develop their way of life and all this kind of stuff, so then you can kind of get the general pieces, if not like, you know, the mantle and the domain and like all these other sort of complex thing, you know, living time like, you know, like, but I think you can still develop and introduce the kind of basic like overview of the Forerunners and the Flood and the sentience and why we're fighting, to have, you know, a complete story. Because like at the end of the day, like there's not like, since this is its own timeline, when the show ends, like that's going to be the end of the show, like unless they do spinoffs and stuff. But like I kind of see this being like a 3 or 4 season story, if not more, and it's just like it's going to be like a Breaking Bad or like a Stranger Things or something, or a Lost, and it's like that's the story contained within this TV show.
I know the Showtime did say they did make references to Game of Thrones, of like this is their push for that. Now, obviously, this show I don't think is anywhere near what Game of Thrones did or could do, but like this could go longer. Do you know what I mean? This could go as long as they wanted to. I don't know if the show really has the legs for it though. That's the thing. So I hope they do make it self-contained and bring it in a bit. I don't know. Do you need to go ancient human routes? Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you need to do that. Do all that stuff. But let's just see. It could just be Forerunner versus Flood, and I think I'd be fine with that, to be honest. And they made the rings because of the Flood and stuff.
I mean, if you look at the original Halo trilogy, like basically it starts off with being humanity versus Covenant, and that's kind of the first game, and we stop the ring from destroying all life in the galaxy. And then the second game gets further complex with the inner politics of the Covenant, and we have the heretics, and we have the brutes coming in, the changing of the guards, and then eventually the schism in Halo 3, but then we're also fighting the Covenant on Earth, and now there's the Flood, and so it ultimately accumulates to the Chief and the Arbiter needing to stop the Flood from like infecting the galaxy. So like that type of story is pretty contained within the trilogy. Like if you didn't have any other Halo media to kind of like flesh all of that out, it's still pretty contained, and there's a beginning, middle, and an end. And I feel like the show will have to do something to that effect, to where there's a beginning, middle, and the end. And once we save the galaxy, then it's, you know, it's saved. But they've said they don't want to just recreate the game, so we're not going to get just Halos 1, 2, and 3. They're going to, you know, implement their own thing. There's also huge theories out there that brute was Atriox, and that we're going to get the Banished, so then it ties with Halo Infinite, which would be a very bold decision in my opinion, but it's not.
No way, that's true.
I mean, it's possible.
If anything, that's Tartarus. I think that it's more possible that it's Tartarus than it is any other brute, to be honest, because they made such a big deal keeping this separate, timeline separate. Trying to tie this show into Infinite, I think, would be necessary.
Well, not necessarily tie it in, but just like make it familiar. So it's like, oh, if you're watching the TV show and and there's banished people in there, well, if you go play the game, you can go fight banished people. Like it's just kind of making the two relevant in the same sort of time space, even though, yeah, they wouldn't really be influencing or relating to each other. But anyway, that was just a fan theory that I was reading online. But my point is that I think this show as a whole, once we start thinking about multiple seasons, will be its own contained thing at the end of the day. And it's just a matter of how much, or no, how long the legs are, that, like you said, whether is it a 3-season arc, is it a 5-season arc, or do we get our 7 seasons with, the 7 being, the Halo number, which I think is very ambitious. I feel like this is more of like a 4-season show, just based off what we have right now.
Like, it gets 3 and gets cancelled. I could see that, like, on the back of, like, okay, season 2 got greenlit before season 1 came out. That shows confidence. That shows a level of belief of what they had seen of season 1, and were like, oh yeah, okay, you need another season to keep going. For me, then, given, like, obviously the expense of the show, and I don't think there's elements of the show that don't look very expensive, and that's kind of disappointing. So I think season 2 has to bring the heat. Do you know what I mean? To get a season 3 time. I don't know if they'll see season 2 and greenlit season 3 straight away. Do you know what I mean? I think at that point, Paramount Plus will be open to more places in the world. It'll be over here. So I wonder if they'll wait and see the numbers of what the show will actually do when it has a bigger audience, which is kind of my worry too. But I don't know. I think people will calm down by the end of season 1. To be honest, of like, it's not this, it's not my chief, blah, blah, blah. But I think they did a fantastic job of setting Paolo as John. I like I said in the analysis, I'm a little bit disappointed with Cortana at the moment, but I guess the show was so focused on him. Their story needs to come into it a little bit somewhere else. She's too young, too naive, too inexperienced, and there's just not a whole lot there between her and John. And she's not doing a whole lot, so that's kind of a little bit disappointing. But I'm guessing that's going to lead up to something.
I would think it does. Like, just kind of thinking about story structure, and like that, yes, since it's such an integral part of Halo is Chief and Cortana's relationship. But I feel like we just need to get there. Like, we kind of are already there by the time we're playing the first game, and we get a little bit of that in like the Fallout for each book of like them kind of learning who they are. But like, by Halo 4 and Halo 5, like there's such a connection that like we needed all these games to do, that we're definitely not going to get that in the first season. Yeah, I can see season 2 being basically the building blocks of their relationship, if like season 1 is just like the foundation.
I'm all in anyway.
Well, before we wrap up, I just want to ask, what's your general impression? We've kind of touched on it here and there, but is there anything specifically you want to touch on of the season as a whole so far? The first 6 episodes, or I guess the first 5, since we've been talking about episode 6 for so long now. Is there anything that you liked or you didn't like that you want the opportunity to discuss before we wrap out here? And we've already really touched on what we're looking forward to. But, maybe if that translates to what might occur in the last episode, since we're kind of getting the near end of it all, how would you like to, respond to it?
I guess it's like I said, I don't love the show, but there's bits in the show I do love. I like it overall. I think the most interesting thing it does are the differences, which I really like. I like how different it is. There's elements that are the same. I think the sets are amazing. The acting is actually really good. I think the casting is really good for the most part. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Keyes, to be honest. There's relationships there I believe and don't believe. Parnowski is amazing. There's just so many characters. It's good. I love seeing the rubble. I love the places where the show goes. It goes to them very quickly. But I guess it is a 9-episode season. It's got to do a whole lot. And I think they're doing a great job of it, to be perfectly honest. I wonder what it was like coming in knowing nothing about Halo and seeing this show. I'd love to talk to someone about that and just see what they think, because obviously we're burdened with knowledge that could potentially ruin different things in the show. Thinking of like I said, I don't like Keyes because of how much I love actual Jacob Keyes. To be honest with you, and like I said, he was a one game character, but it was just so great in the lore surrounding it that made him so strong. But again, I do like that what they've done with Miranda, to keep her in, that she's a doctor, scientist, and stuff like that. I do like that, but they might as well have just called them different people, to be honest, and just gone away with it. What else do we have to do? Soren and the Rubble, like Kwan's story, that I was interested in that at the start. I don't see their relevance anymore, which is weird. Like, this episode literally killed that storyline for me caring about it. Of like, okay, now this is where I am, and I'm like, do we really care about Soren? Do we really care about Kwan? I'm not sure their importance yet, to be perfectly honest. They were good and interesting together. She was a bit annoying, with her all like, I have to get the rebels, rebels. I'm like, just, get over it. It's done. I like, so anyway, I'm intrigued to see where that goes, but I'm not as invested as I am now because episode 6 kind of killed that for me, to be honest, just because it was so good and what it did show me. If the next episode goes back to Quan and Soren, I'm going to be like, no, go back to John and go down, get me back there, Other than that, I think I've already touched on. I'm not hot in the music. A couple of key elements I was a bit disappointed with there, but other than that, the show overall I think is pretty good.
I'm excited. I'm invested. I do like where it's headed, and I was on the edge of my seat in that last scene, and was just like, hot damn! Like, I can't wait for the next week. So, well, David, thank you so much for joining me. Listeners, if you're otherwise unfamiliar, David also appears on our Mission Debrief episodes with Colin and the rest of the crew over there, talking about Halo Infinite right now and the deep story beats and action sequences of the game. You can listen to that on Evolve's various podcasting platforms. If you're interested in Alex Waitford, who is Herespis with 343, he releases a Silver Debriefing blog every Monday. And this blog is a source to recap the story of each episode in detail, serve as a hub for additional show-related content, and provide some more detailed insight into certain other things. And if you want to read the Silver Debriefing blog for Solace, you can head over to Halo Waypoint now to check it out. David, thank you for joining me again.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Oran.
We will have to give you back on the show for a retrospective of the whole season, where I need to start talking about the logistics of that with everybody else who I've had on the show. Yeah, thanks for coming. Thank you, the listener, for listening for another week of Halo TV Plus. Halo the series premieres exclusively on Paramount Plus every Thursday morning at midnight Pacific Time. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, you can find every episode to all of the shows that Evolve produces on our website, evolvedhalo.com. It also features links to our Discord server, Patreon page, Xbox Live Club, and other contact information. Once again, another special shout out to all of our patrons for supporting Evolved and making all of our shows possible. Head over to patreon.com/HaloEvolved to learn more. And finally, if you want to leave us an email or a voicemail about this week's Halo the Series episode, you can email us at podcastevolved@gmail.com, or you can give us a call at 205-EVOLVED, which is 205-386-5833. And with that, I've been your host, Oran, and until next time, evolve!
Evolve!